Hi, it's so nice to speak to you again. I've had to take a little break because between my brother passing, which was very traumatic, there was a podcast episode about that, and then my daughter Olivia had been sick, and then I got so sick. I had like the highest fever, and I say the highest fever. For me, it was very high. Obviously not compared to a cat, but I couldn't like get it down paracetamol, and I thought I just need a total break. So I've taken a break, which is what I preach, right? Like self-care and noticing when we're gonna get burnt out. And if there's one thing I don't want is to burn myself so much in the ground that then I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do podcasting if I feel like it's something I have to. So not having the energy, that definitely put a stake in the ground for me that I had to take a break. So I've taken that, and I hope now to be back every week like I used to, just because I really enjoy it and I get so many ideas when I'm not lying in bed, feverish. Um, and I wanted to talk today about healing, actually, because as you may know that I have an amazing coach. He's Buddhist and from Korea, and he just has so many of the things that he says. Many of the examples are just so good, and it just makes me straight away extrapolate what he says to us vets as well. Like a lot of the things that he teaches is just so related to us. And he was talking about how many of us coaches we can get this idea of, and it comes back to perfectionism, just like in vets, right? We get this idea that, for example, I would have to have the absolute perfect life. I would have to have like this solid morning routine. I would have to have never have anxiety, just always be in a place of super content, earning a ton of money, have all my goals accomplished, and then I can be a coach for others. A lot of people that start out in this field are like that. They're like, oh, but my life is not perfect yet. So how can I help others? And he was talking about how you just need to be a bit further ahead in the path or just know something that can help. And he was given an example, for example, if I can't remember, was it some famous person got AIDS, got HIV, and it was obviously something you can't cure, like you can't heal them 100%, but isn't it better? Like you can't do like a perfect body with no HIV. You can't give that to a person, but you can make their life say 20% better, or you can make them live 20 years more. Like that, just a bit better is sometimes good enough. And I think for us vets, a lot of the expectation we have is that we have to know 100% what is going on with the patient. We have to know 100% exactly what tests to run. And we have to get this patient like the treatment so it can get 100% better. Even if it's a euthanasia, no, sometimes we want them to go 100% perfect, and sometimes they don't, because it can be a bit like if they're very unstable or the owners are a bit unstable, it can be difficult to make it work 100%, and then we beat ourselves up because it wasn't this like perfect candlelit experience. And I myself am dabbling in the hormone chaos now of the perimenopause, and I actually paid to go and see a gynecologist because I wanted to make sure, I get the right treatment, and I want to be sure that the doctor I see is actually informed in perimenopause. And I just got my blood results back that my testosterone is sky high, so I'm lucky to not be sitting here with a body mustache and and a Schwarzenegger arm. And one of my cholesterols was way too high. And considering I'm vegan and I exercise so much and I don't really drink and I don't smoke, I sat there and was a bit miffed, like, why the hell is my cholesterol high? God damn it. And it could then be related to testosterone. I don't know. So I sent her an email and I said, like, what do I do with this now? What do I need to do? Like, where do we go from here? And I think about, as vets, when we get our blood results back from a dog or a cat or whatever, and we then want to give these results to the owners, we always sit and sweat, don't we? Like sit there and Google, like, what does the high ALT with the whatnot is high? Well, I do that anyway. And you just want to give them this like perfect package that these are the bloods, and this is exactly why they're like this. This is what it means. And here, this is what we need to do from now. And I did not get that from my doctor, who is a specialist in gynecology. I did not get like a perfect message like, oh, you need to get your testosterone down and you need to look at your cholesterol. I'm like, what do you want me to look at me? Like cholesterol, like short of just eating fucking kale and chickpeas the rest of my life, like, and running around the block for 24 hours. I don't know what else to do. There must be something else. Is it genetic? So I want you to think about all the ways that you beat yourself up, all the ways that you get filled with self-doubt, where you feel like an imposter, where you feel you're not good enough because your expectations of your work are that everything has to be 100% all the time. How often do we do this, right? Like you do a scan and you have to have a diagnosis from the scan. You do an X-ray and you have to have like a very specific diagnosis. And just from the history, you have to like kind of guess what is the best approach and choose the perfect test. And then the tests come back, and sometimes you don't get a result. All you've done is rule out stuff, but you don't really have a diagnosis yet. And now they've spent this money, and you really need to stop and appreciate the healing process of this. What I mean is, you need to appreciate that now you have diagnosed that it hasn't got a broken leg, for example. That is a step in the healing process, even if you still don't know if that weird shape of the bone is an osteosarcoma or is it a growth thing or is it an osteomyelitis or something. Even if you don't know that for sure, a part of the healing is saying, okay, but there's no fracture and there's no this and there's no that. That is part of the healing process. Just like being able to say that to the owners. And also, sometimes even if the owners don't let us, let's say an old dog comes in and is limping and you really want to do bloods and you really want to do X-rays and you want to sedate and you want to do a CT scan to check the spine, to check the hips, to check whatever and see if there's something else. And the owners have got no money and they're also not really that keen on spending money because it's an old dog. Sometimes we beat ourselves up and think, coming back to the whole gold standard thing, like, oh, I should have like full bloods, check the kidneys, check the liver. And how can you be okay with what can I do for this patient right now that would heal a part of this patient? Can I give it some sort of analgesia? Can I give it a pain relief that will at least help it? Say if it's a 10 out of 10 pain right now, can I reduce that to a 6 out of 10? Because that's what they do with humans, right? And of course, I wish that we could take all our patients and do all the tests necessary and absolutely make them perfect all the time. But that is not the reality of life. And I have now gone through a lot of personal, like family and friend hospitalizations, disease, death, cancer, accidents. And I have seen how humans are treated, no? And we don't normally get enough pain relief to get us to a 0 out of 10. And it's not that I say, oh, we don't do it in humans, so we shouldn't do it in animals either, because if we have a choice, of course we will. But sometimes it's just not possible with what you've got on you, with what the patient allows you to do. If it's an aggressive dog, or if they are terrified of you, or they won't take tablets, or the owner hasn't got any money. There's so many things that play in that are not in the textbook. And for you to beat yourself up and getting to burnout, getting to be really anxious and depressed and feeling like an imposter because you're not able to get to that 100% all the time, that takes you out of the healing process. Because when you get to that point and then maybe you leave vet med, or you don't want to do consults anymore because you don't want to speak to people anymore, or you maybe end up in an area where you're not helping where you really wanted to be helping because of how bad it makes you feel, then you're not healing anything. And can you be okay with being able to get the pain down from a 10 out of 10 to maybe down to a 6 out of 10? That is a little step in that patient's, life and that patient's disease. Can you be okay with palliative care instead of curative care because the circumstances? Can you be okay with going in, doing an X-lab, going in because you're 100% sure there's a foreign body in there or there's a mass or something, and you go in and there's nada? And then you go out and you're like, okay, we didn't get to a diagnosis, and I don't think I did any treatment either because, we didn't find anything. And then you beat yourself up because you kind of talked the owners into doing that. But part of the healing process of this animal is to get down to like the details of this intestine and have a look and maybe do a biopsy and rule a ton of shit out, like a mass, like lymphoma, like a foreign body or a linear foreign body or whatever it is. No, you can see so much when you do an X-lab. And a part of the healing process can be to rule a ton of shit out. So just like my life is not perfect and I am not like, I don't coach myself to perfection and I'm this like Zen state all the time, like not at all. It doesn't mean that I can't help you, get to some sort of perspective or get you to some sort of like calm or contentment or seeing your life in another way that can be helpful and help you get out of anxiety, give you tools for anxiety, breathing exercise, learning how to feel your I can do all that even if I'm not perfect. And even if I coach you and you don't go from I hate life, I just want to lie on the carpet curled up like super anxious and breathe really quick, I can't get you from there to like, no, I want to host a party for 100 people and I'm super, amazing right now. I can maybe get you to like 25% better today and then next week a little bit better. And that for me is like success. Anything that is a little bit better, is a little bit of healing, that is a success. We need to also redefine success for ourselves, so when you're with a patient, when you're with people, sometimes we feel like it's a bit like when we talk about losing the battle to cancer, for example. It's like this battle we have to win. Maybe not. Like the cancer is happening. How can the success be that we make the end of life for this patient, instead of making it longer at any cost with operations, invasive procedures, and this and the other? Can we maybe make it slightly longer? Can we make the dog be super happy right to the end? I mean, the other day I had a farmer coming in with a beagle that it just had some horrible tumors. The tumors that you feel the dog and the dog is like, half the dog is just like cauliflower and they're really stuck to the muscle and you can't move them and you're like, ugh, it gives you like the jeebies. And the dog was still trotting around, but then lying down, and then trotting around, then lying down, and she was still eating, but they were like, I think the time has come now, no? And I opened up a new bag of treats, and I was like, I got them to feed the dog, so I was literally giving the injection. She was eating till the moment she fell over. It's because, of course, she chose to stand for the last bit of it, so she went down like a bloody horse. But maybe because I'm an emergency vet, so I had not seen this dog before, but it's possible that the vet that was dealing with this cancer process that this dog had, and I think they did biopsy once and then they dropped it. I don't know if this vet maybe thought that they had not succeeded, that there wasn't like 100% improvement with this dog. They weren't able to help it any longer. The owners didn't want to do whatever. And maybe they felt a bit like a failure. But for me, doing the euthanasia, it was like 100% success, like 100%. And, I got the catheter fine. The dog was like, okay, the nurse I worked with did an amazing job. The owners were like crying. We got them tissues, but it was a beautiful moment. And the owners did say to me, oh, this must be so hard for you. And I'm like, well, actually not, because, I didn't say after my brother, but I thought after my brother, I definitely am happy to be able to like have a clean, nice death, with your loved ones surrounding you. And to me, that is a privilege, So for me, that is a success. But maybe if you have a case that you're really working hard on and you just can't get to a diagnosis, it get worse, whatever it is, and you have to go to euthanasia, instead of seeing that you failed at healing, the healing can be the euthanasia. I know it can be that last bit. If you can make that nice and you can like round it off nicely for the owners, that can be 100% success. No, that can be a healing for the owners and a healing for the dog or the cat, because now it's no longer suffering. And sometimes euthanasias are shit because the animal is super upset. They have like, they're super unstable. So you have to like run in and do it because now it can't breathe. And it's just a bit. And then we beat ourselves up because now it's not like a nice experience when they're eating treats until the end. But with the circumstances we got in that moment, it's still a success because the bloody animal died for once and stopped suffering. And it's also, we did what we could in that moment. We were part of the healing, right? And we just have this expectation of how things should go. We have some expectations of how everything has to be perfect, and we have to be perfect as well. Sometimes we lose our shit, or we get emotional, or we're just not at our best. And that doesn't mean that you can't help people and you can't help pets just because you feel like that. So I really want you to think about, what expectations are you having in your day-to-day about how you should show up and how you should be able to get to a diagnosis, and how your operations are going, or anything. Like if you're some sort of leader and you're leading a team and things are not going the way you want to, like how much of that are you really blaming yourself and having a lot of self-doubt, beating yourself up because it's not a 10 out of 10? And where does that expectation come from, that it has to be a 10 out of 10? When we are in this like real life day to day, right? So think about that. Think about how you are part of the healing process for the people around you, the owners that come in with their pets, and more important, like the most important is obviously your patients. How are you just a part of their healing journey, even if you can't cure the cancer or you can't get to exactly what process is going on and you can't give the exact treatment you want? How is you making that animal or the owners feel just a little bit better? How is that good enough? How can that be a success? How can that make you feel like, accomplished in a day and not go home frustrated and thinking about all this should have, could have, shouldn't have, and so on and so on? I invite you to do that today. And it was lovely to speak to you again, and I'll see you next week. Bye.